everyone, and welcome to Drums Set Your Way to Success. In this video series, we're going to go over some basic beats and techniques to get you started on how to play the drum set. In this first video, we're just going to go over how to set up your drum set, what all the different parts of the drum set are, and how to hold your sticks. So let's get started. All right, so when it comes to setting up your drum set, the first thing you want to do is make sure that your drum throne or stool is at the right height for you. You want to sit in the stool so that your legs are a little bit at a downward angle, not quite parallel, because then you won't be able to move around as versatile. And if you're really up high, you won't be able to control your feet as well. So almost parallel with a slightward downward angle is going to be the best setup for you. Okay, and then you want to set up your stool so that the snare drum is right in front of you. Okay, this is our snare drum. This is sort of the main drum on a drum set. You could get away with just having a snare drum and some cymbals if you really needed to. Why is this called a snare drum? Because on the bottom, there's these little beads called the snares, which give it its specific snare sound. There is a switch right here called the throw off switch. If I turn that off, the snare mechanism turns off, and it has almost a tom-like sound, which are these other drums we'll get to here in a second. But for the majority of your drum set playing, you're gonna want your snare drum to be on. So make sure that switch is turned on. So this is your snare drum. And like I mentioned, you also have three main toms, okay? We have our high tom, or tom 1, our low tom, or tom 2. For the purposes of this video series, I'll be referring to these as the high tom and the low tom. And then this bigger one right here is called the floor tom, because this is actually set up on the floor. These two toms or also called mounted toms, are actually mounted to the bass drum. Now the bass drum is right here. This is your biggest drum, okay, and lowest drum. And you play this with a foot pedal, which is down here, which I'll show you a close-up of in a second. So we play this bass drum with our foot, and we play all these other drums with our sticks and our hands. So these are the 5 main drums to a 5-piece drum set. So again, in this video series, I'll be playing on a 5-piece set. You could just have a 4-piece set, in which case you would not have this low tom right here. All right, so let's talk about our cymbals next, okay? So again, we're setting up our drum set. We have our snare drum here. Our toms, our bass drum should be to our right so that our right foot can play it correctly, and the floor tom to your right here as well. All right, now the cymbals. So right above my floor tom to my right is my right cymbal. So you can sort of remember R for right, R for right. That's gonna go on your right hand side. You're gonna play this with your right hand right here. You wanna make sure that it is not too far over these two drums so that it's not in the way. And you do wanna make sure it's at a good angle so you can play it comfortably with your right hand here. You don't want it flat. Notice how it's sort of coming down at a downward angle, so it's easier for me to play it as I'm sitting here. Next, you have your crash cymbal. Your crash cymbal usually goes to the right of the toms and in front of your snare drum. And you will usually also play this with your right hand. And again, it's at a downward angle like my right cymbal, so it's easier for me to play. Last but not least, the most important, if you will, we have our hi-hat. Now the hi-hat is actually 2 cymbals, one on top of the other, as you can see. And just like the bass drum, I play that with my foot. This one I'm actually gonna play with my left foot. So you need to make sure this is at the left side of your body, okay? So I can very comfortably play my snare drum and my other drums and play these two, the bass drum and this hi-hat with my 2 feet, all right? You wanna make sure your hi-hat is at a comfortable spot for your foot to reach it. You don't have to reach too far. And then if you notice, these 2 cymbals are actually not even with each other, okay? The top cymbal is actually coming at a downward angle onto the bottom cymbal. That's gonna get you a really good crisp sound that you want on the hi-hat. If they were completely flat on each other, you get a tight air pocket sound, and we don't want that either. Okay, so let's review. Again, make sure that your stool is at the right height so you can sit comfortably. The snare drum should be right in front of you in between your legs. Your right foot is gonna play the bass drum, and your left foot is gonna play the hi-hat. You're gonna have 2 sticks in your hands to play your snare drum, followed by your 2 toms. We have our high tom, low tom, and floor tom. And then we have our ride cymbal on the right, crash cymbal on the left. Something else to keep in mind when you're setting up your drum set is make sure you have it set up on a rug or carpet. Why? Because when you play the drum set, especially your hi-hat and bass drum with your feet, it can actually slide around if you have it set up on linoleum or hardwood floor. And so you want to use a carpet to keep it from moving around. You also want to use a carpet to keep your floors safe, because you don't want to end up scratching up your floors and ruining your floors. So make sure you have your drum set set up on a carpet or rug. They make specific drum set rugs, but right now mine's just on the rug I have in my house, which will work just fine. Okay, so now let's get a close-up of what these pedals look like. Here's my hi-hat pedal, okay? And you want your foot to go right on top of it, okay? Now there's the heel down technique where I keep my heel down, or there's the heel up technique where I keep my heel up. Both can work for different styles, which we'll talk about more in later videos. And now here's a close-up of what that hi-hat angle looks like. So again, the top one is at an angle, and it is not straight and flush with the lower one. The way you adjust that is with this screw right here. So if I tighten the screw, notice how it's pushing this up a bit to get the angle we want. You don't want this screw all the way flat down. So that's something to keep in mind when you set up your hi-hat. And here is the bass drum pedal. And again, my foot goes on top of that. And again, you can play with a heel down technique, okay, which we want if we want to play with a slightly softer bass drum, or the heel up technique if I want a stronger bass drum sound. All right, so now it's time to talk about drumsticks. When it comes to picking out the right drumsticks for your drum set, you want to make sure you get the right size. Okay, today I'm using ProMark 5As. Vic Firth also makes really good drumsticks that are also called 5As. This is your pretty standard drum set size, okay, and they're not very expensive. You can use whatever brand you prefer, but the biggest thing is to make sure you are not using marching band sticks, okay? So notice the difference between these two sticks, okay? My drum set sticks are a lot thinner and the tips are a lot smaller. This is better for playing on these types of drums. These marching band sticks are a lot thicker, a lot heavier, a lot larger, and they can actually damage your drum set drums if you're playing too big and incorrectly. Also, they're just thicker and harder to hold, okay? And these are better for marching band because we want to be louder out on the field. We don't need this big of a stick for our drum set on the inside. So make sure you're using the right size drumsticks, always. All right, so now let's talk about how we actually hold our drumstick, okay? There's 3 main parts to the drumstick, okay? We have the tip. This is the part where we're gonna hit the drum with. And the end or the butt. And then this is the main body of the stick here in the middle. Now, all sticks are designed to have a balance point about halfway to the center. You want to hold the stick a few inches below that, actually, to get the right grip that we want. Okay, and we're going to grip our sticks with our thumb and our first finger. This is called the fulcrum. All right, so I'm going to use my thumb and my first finger just like this, okay? And this is the main grip. So not with the tip of your finger, more about where your knuckle, your first knuckle is with your thumb. And then your other 3 fingers are just going to relax around, and you kind of just want to make sure they're lined up like that, okay? We don't want our pinky sticking out. We don't want to do anything weird like this. And when we play, we want about the backside of our hands to be up and our palm facing the ground. And you're gonna hold both sticks this way, and this is called matched grip. I recommend using match grip if you're just starting out. It's a lot easier and you have more control, and this is how I'll be holding my sticks in this video series. There's also something called traditional grip, which you might see in marching band, where we hold the stick in our left hand like so, in between our middle finger and ring finger, and I have my thumb actually pointed up this way with my palm facing upward. Some people prefer to play this way for jazz, and that's a preference. Once you start practicing and get your own style, if you prefer to play this way, that's up to you. But again, I recommend that we all start with match grip. It just gives you more control. So again, so you have more of a downward angle to see. If I'm playing with match grip, my hands are both gonna look like this, with the backs of my hands up, and my 2 sticks will sort of come at it to a triangle point here on my snare drum. If I'm gonna play with traditional grip and kind of flip my hand around here, this is what it would look like here on the drum. So we have our traditional, and And if I'm playing traditional, I do have to sort of rotate my wrist this way. But we're gonna use match grip here, and all we have to do is kind of come upward and down to play our drum. I hope you found this first video helpful. There's your basic introduction to the drum set, and we're gonna start playing in video number 2.